What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, let's bang out a few mailbag questions. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. I think I'm going to do a big mailbag for Friday, so I'll just bang out a couple here. You guys know the drill. Just slide into my DMs and get your questions answered on the show. Calvin, big fan for about a year now, and this is coming from a Packers guy. What steps and moves do you think we as a team need to make to push us over the edge? Well, I would say you're not quite to the edge. You were one and done this year, obviously against the champs. Last year felt like you were better, even though your defense wasn't as good. I think we talk about the Packers a lot. You guys obviously worldwide fan base here. Uh, to go from Favre to Rodgers to now this, it looked like they did it again right after the Cowboy game, and then even after last season ended. I think his season ended with a pick against the Niners his first year starting, but it was like, okay, the future is bright. And then last year he got injured against the Eagles, and it just kind of made for a bizarre season. I've seen it's listen, you're not going to bring in anyone on one of those 30 visits that you're not interested in. So anytime you see them bring in a wide receiver, I think it's fair to say the Packers are going to take a wide receiver in the first couple rounds. They've had success in the second round, right? Devontae, pretty sure Jordy was a second round pick, might have been third round pick. Pretty sure he's a second round pick though. Doesn't get much better in second round picks, Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams. So you don't always need to draft those guys really high. But the thing with the Packers, like your expectations next year is to compete for the NFC. And Devontae's career didn't really get going until like second year, middle of the second year, and by the third year he took off. So sometimes it takes a little time. Um, I just think the offense has got to be more dynamic, and whether that's some of the guys already on the roster taking big steps, maybe you become just a true run heavy team, which I think LaFleur doesn't mind doing. It's kind of his background. I mean, Aaron Jones, obviously, Josh Jacobs is a stud. I'm trying to see what were Jacobs' stats last year? I know he missed, was he injured? I know he missed games with the Raiders, but so Jacobs, yeah, he played in every game. I mean, Jacobs was excellent. He averaged 4.5 yards a carry at 300 carries, 7 touchdowns, 1,300 yards. I mean, he's a big time player. Your backup running back at 500 yards. I mean, you guys, how many teams in the league ran for more yards than the Packers? I can't imagine it was many. I would have been, you guys were near the top in total yards. And you were. You only the Bucks, who had an unreal rushing offense, Washington, whose quarterback also runs, the Eagles and the Ravens, which makes sense. So your rushing offense is excellent. I would just keep leaning into that. Now, the couple games when Malik started too, but I would lean into that with Jordan Love. Is take the pressure off him. Like you do not make him try to play like Joe Burrow. So I would just keep doing what you're doing, and the defense gets better, and which was took steps last year under Halfley. I'd be bullish if I was a Packer fan. I really would. My question is, do you ever expand? Do you ever plan on expanding the type of content you make? I understand you are a podcaster, but have you ever thought about making video essays where you dive deeper into a topic or a story with editing? It doesn't have to be that, but I was wondering if you've thought about it. Yeah, I've thought about it a lot. We've dabbled a little bit in it. Probably dabble a little bit more. I just look at it like this is going really well, and I just try to put all my energy into this, and then dabble a little bit on the side. We've done golf videos in the past. Plan on doing much more of those uh, this summer. And once it gets, I mean, it's 90 degrees where I'm at, but I have some big ideas, and it's just about doing them. But yeah, I mean, I have to, sounds cheesy, but like there's a strong balance of like this is the main thing and this is what pays the bills and why we're in business. So I take so much energy doing this. And listen, I don't act like I'm digging ditches here. I'm not acting like it's physically demanding, but mentally, I do spend a lot of time and energy in this, and it actually is much more time consuming in the off season because there's not as much going on. But we plan on doing some interview stuff. Uh, I don't do many interviews. I mean, as you guys know, this is not like an interview heavy podcast. This is just me. So we plan on doing some of that stuff, which is a little different, which we've done in the past, but uh, yeah, expanding content. We're always, I mean, any ideas. It's the best part about the internet. Do whatever we want. This is not, corporate America here. We can do whatever, whenever, at any moment, right? As long as I'm taking care of our business partners, so that there aren't any restrictions, and we just keep firing. The fight for the jacket is on in Augusta. Get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook. From the opening round through Championship Sunday, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with live betting, player props, and so much more. Have you never bet on golf before? Don't worry, I got you covered. I love it, and I do it all the time. You just have to pick a simple golfer to win the tourney and make your pick. It's that simple. They also got top 10s, top 20s, head-to-head, a lot of different options. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Assuming they couldn't jam you on the line, if you had to get open and catch a pass, which one of these three corners would you want to try to go against? Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley, or Trent McDuffie? Thanks. I would love to play golf with Sauce. That guy is a junkie. Sauce has really grown on me. I just see his love of golf. He's a junkie, and so I appreciate him. His game, on the other hand, uh, I think it's pretty hard to just be a full press, super physical corner in this day and age because one, so many wide receivers are really fast. So if the referees aren't allowing you to just maul them at the line, and you aren't like Derek Stingley is an elite athlete. Like his strength of his game is going to be just to stay in your hip pocket. McDuffie is just an all-around really good player, also a solid athlete. Sauce against me, like could I get open? I couldn't get open on any of these people. I appreciate these questions. I think in a weird way you were almost underestimating even I think Sauce. If I had to pick these three guys, like who do I want on my team? I would go Stingley, McDuffie, Sauce. But I mean, Sauce's first 2 years, he was an All-Pro in the NFL. So I mean, the very high standards for these three cats. And Stingley had obviously a breakout season, but nobody, and I mean nobody, who is not like a Division I wide receiver is getting open on any of these guys, regardless of a jam. Sauce relative to like Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or you name some of the best receivers in the league. AJ Brown, yeah, it's going to be Devontae Smith. Going to be difficult against me, against you, against normal people. You would have not a shot on God's green earth to get an ounce of space. But if my life depended on it, you'd have to choose Sauce because he's the least of the three. I would say fluid athlete. You would have, and I mean no chance, and I mean absolutely zero, negative, nilch against Derek Stingley. His ability and athletic ability, it's like prime Russell Westbrook or something. I have a question pertaining to the popularity of baseball. Why is it that people are saying it's dying boring sport in comparison to football? I live in Washington and went to my first Mariner game last night in like 10 years. I was expecting it to be low attendance and low energy. Yet, there was like 30,000 people and a shitload of energy, which was surprising because it was Tuesday night against the Astros, not to mention we suck right now. Just curious, the stigma. I think that's really driven is one, the explosion of television sports talk, which, Collins, obviously, his show is he does, I mean, his podcast, what we do on the volume, is obviously different from what they do at the Herd, which is a television show. First Take, those type things are basically driven all by football and then the NBA. Like, I think that baseball has got lost in that world. And then in the podcast world, all the big podcasts don't really talk about baseball. Obviously, there are some baseball podcasts, but like big quote unquote sports podcasts are just not talking any baseball until the playoffs. So when that happens, there becomes a stigma that it just is kind of irrelevant. Where I'd argue the NBA, and this is someone that just went to a game, you turn on these television shows, no one is, it's pretty rare that like you're really breaking down a game like you would in football. It's talking like, where is Jokic going to demand a trade to now? No one gets a bigger hard on than basketball people when a disaster happens with a franchise and they have a star player. Like, is this guy going to demand a trade? It's an immediate conversation. Where is Jokic going to go? It's like his coach got fired 2 minutes ago and now he's going to ask for a trade. But that's the conversation. And that to me drives basketball talk, and baseball talk. It just doesn't exist. I also think most of these people aren't watching games anymore. So you just talk about what you watch. And I think a lot of people in the space of talking about just general sports don't watch any baseball. They basically have to go all in on football. And for me, for example, like I don't really even talk. Like I used to just do a general radio show before I got into podcasting, and then all I got into football, and it got so big. It's like, why don't I just talk more football? And then we started doing a football show basically every day. And the reason I do golf is it's a little bit of a passion project slash like, for business opportunities. But it's because I watch. It wasn't someone's like, you should do that. It's like, no, I'm just going to do that because I watch. I don't really watch other sports unless it's like March Madness or maybe the NBA playoffs or the baseball playoffs. I watch those type things when I feel like a lot of consumers are. And I think that's where a lot of people have kind of turned when it came to when it came to talking about baseball. And I think the ratings reflected that in terms of those shows. Now, locally, you think the Yankees kind of matter in New York or the Dodgers matter in LA? It's if the Giants are good, I know they really matter in San Francisco. Philly, I mean, the big markets are, Chicago, the Cubs. Yeah, I think baseball has become a very localized sport, but it's become very, very lucrative. I mean, these guys are making the top players 500 to $700 million. Now it's over like 25-year contracts, but still. Any buzz on Gavin Bartholomew, Pitt tight end, small town kid who grew up in my hometown, went to high school, super nice, high character dude. I saw him run the 40 in the low 4.7s. I was just wondering if you've heard his name being brought up. I have not. Um, Sometimes, I'm not in the weeds as much. And one thing I learned doing this is like the difference when you work in football and you're really close to it, you're just nerding out on all these players and you're just so uh, in on the fifth, sixth, seventh round picks. And then once you get doing my job, and you realize that when you're in it, but you don't have a choice because you still got to write these guys up and follow their careers. Half the people that, and you know this, whoever your team is, it's like you get excited about third round pick, a fourth round pick, and then all of a sudden they are not playing at all come the fall, and two undrafted free agents are in their spots. It's like I've seen it so many times. Is like you get so excited on about guys on the second and third day, and the guy you get really excited about turns out to be the one that isn't as good as the guy that no one talked about in the fifth round who becomes like an all pro by his third year. And I just think the draft is such a crapshoot, especially this upcoming draft. Like no one seems to know how it's going to shake out. I recently saw a post joking about predicting the Luck Belichick rivalry, being that Stanford and UNC, in both being ACC opponents, would be absolutely insane to tell someone in 2018. Do you have any wild card predictions of college or NFL guys switching like this? Do you think stuff like this will happen in a few years with the landscape of both leagues? Totally agree. One thing that has changed in college football is one, these GM's jobs didn't exist. And two, the amount of money these programs can pay Belichick makes $10 million, and he's kind of like got a discount. He's paying like four guys on his staff seven figures, and that includes his GM, Mike Lombardi. Well, these GM jobs didn't exist. So I think we're going to, I just saw Jim Nagy, who ran the Senior Bowl, who was a longtime scout, is now the GM of the Oklahoma Sooners. And the guy who just got hired to run the Senior Bowl had previously been the GM of like Auburn and I don't know, some other major program. And these guys are making so much money that these jobs didn't exist. So I think we're going to see more and more that if I would have told you 5 years ago that the Colorado Buffaloes are going to be coached by Deion Sanders as the head coach, with Pat Shermer as the offensive coordinator, Marshall Falk as the running back coach, and Warren Sapp as the defensive line coach, you'd be like, what are you talking about? And that's something that's actually happening. So one thing we've learned now long enough in sports, but specifically with this explosion in college football, you never know. And seen it occasionally back in the day, right? Saban just left the Dolphins to go back to, or not to back, but to Bama. Petrino left on the Falcons when Vic got arrested, and he went to was it Arkansas or Louisville? I forget. Petrino, crazy cat, but good offensive coach. It was pretty jarring when that happens. Now, if you told me that someone got fired this offseason, I mean, Ron Rivera is the GM of Cal. Ron Rivera was the head coach of the Washington football team like 18 months ago. I just think it's really, really hard to predict. The Belichick thing is crazy, but part of that is I think he clearly knew that he wasn't going to get a job or didn't want any of the jobs that people would even been interested in hiring him. Where do you rank Sirianni? This is David from Georgia. Where do you rank Sirianni among the best coaches in the NFL? Just curious. Hopefully you see this, and I look forward to the answer soon. It's a great question. Anything I say is going to sound like I'm a hater or talking shit when he's a Super Bowl champ. So there is a short list of human beings that can say, I was a head coach for a team that won a Super Bowl. There's probably even a shorter list of guys that say, I'm a head coach that went to multiple Super Bowls. Think about this. Pete Carroll, who's a legendary coach, who should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And if you combine like basketball does, pro and college, he's had one of the most legendary coaching careers. He's been a head coach for the Jets, the Patriots, Seattle, the Trojans, and the Raiders. He's been a head coach of five different places that are all pretty important. And he's been to two Super Bowls total. And Sirianni's also been to two in 3 years. So it's like Sirianni and Pete Carroll have the same Super Bowl resume. They're 1-1. Think about that. But if you told me I was the GM and all the coaches were free, right? All 32 and assistants, I could hire whoever I wanted in the pros, not college. Like I had to hire, we're playing NFL football, hire. I don't think he goes that high. Now, I don't think he goes like 28, but who are you taking him over? Like, think about this. He's had more success than Dan Campbell. But if all things were equal, like you don't get Howie Roseman. Howie, it's not a package deal. This isn't Shaq and Kobe. You just get one. You just get Sirianni. If you or me are the GM, are you hiring Sirianni over Dan Campbell? Because you're not taking him over the Harbaugh brothers. I would say that a lot of the offensive guys that call plays, if I'm starting from scratch, like I don't have a $200 million offense. We all have starting from the same point, and Howie is not existing. I'm the GM. I would be really inclined to obviously hire, clearly people would take Andy Reid over Sirianni, but would be to hire the coaches that can also call the plays. So it's weird. It's like what he did is impressive, but it does feel like an organizational thing. Which again, if you're him, who gives a shit? Now, where it does matter is where's his contract extension? Does Jeffrey Lurie believe in him? Because if he does, he should give him 4 years, $60 million, $15 million a year or something extension. Shouldn't that already be done by now? And maybe it gets done. But is Jeffrey Lurie giving him that? Because I saw a headline recently like it's going to happen. And again, I feel like a hater. The guy won the Super Bowl. So who cares if you're him? But no one's going to consider him near the top. I don't think much changes because Jalen Hurts and that defense dominated the Chiefs. I'm currently a senior in college and graduating in a month with a degree in marketing. Congratulations. I've been wanting to get into sports media and especially the football world for a while now. I make content and write my own stories for my team, the Denver Broncos. I've had an intro call with ESPN, but doesn't seem like anything is going to come from it. Just hoping you could provide me some career advice in pursuing this career. I make content and write my own stories. I think you just keep doing that until something breaks. Like this, what you are, the world you're playing in, people my age, it didn't even exist. So we would have no choice but to keep contacting people because you couldn't just create your own stuff. And I think the power of any content you're creating, like I would quadruple down on that if you have time. And then you got to be guerrilla warfare, reaching out to people, emailing people, DMing, doing whatever it takes. Because in a weird way, being a young guy out of college, like you need them, they don't need you. But once you're there, maybe they realize they really needed you. But there's no way for you to convince them that they need you without complete guerrilla warfare just to get on their radar. So I can't speak. I've never worked at ESPN or any of these Fox, but you just got to be relentless in your pursuit. And eventually, ideally something will break. And while you're relentless in your pursuit, you can create your own stuff. Question for the pod. Will we see a coach get fired like Mike Malone in the NFL? Someone who's won at the highest level and continues to win, but has lost the locker room and is a few games away from the playoffs. I have a hard time seeing it. With 3 games left or whatever, a week left in the season, it would probably be the equivalent of a team, I don't know, maybe 10-5 that has a playoff berth locked up, firing their coach with 2 weeks because they were 10-3 and lost 2 games. I just now here's the thing in the NBA. You think they fire him without Nicola, as Michael Malone called him, saying, I want him to stay? Because if Jokic wanted him to stay, what do you think happens? He's not fired. Where in football, you're not exactly pulling the locker room, though sometimes it happens. Jeffrey Lurie famously did with Chip Kelly, dragged him out of the building. Mark Davis did it with Josh McDaniels, fired him on Halloween. So it can happen, but usually it's a firing I don't want to say out of nowhere, but during the season, is typically with bad teams, but it usually happens because either the owner's turned on you or the players have turned on you and they've gone to the owner. In basketball, that's the only way it happens. No one gets fired in the NBA at the highest level that have star player on the team without you going through the star player. It's the way it works. The question I have for the mailbag is regarding the Chargers. With it seeming likely that we will look to take a tight end, either Warren or Loveland, do you see it worth them trading back in the late first round and getting a defensive tackle to replace Ford, who they lost in free agency, or Abuka out of Ohio State? So you can give Herbert another weapon in the pass game to go with McConkey. Both were huge pains in the butt for Harbaugh at Michigan to deal with. Harmon was at Michigan State before transferring. Plus, I think the biggest strength is Harbaugh being a recent out of college game is being able to identify the higher end talent. If so, would multiple twos and a fourth to potential third be worth it? So, if so, would multiple twos and a fourth? I'm not quite sure what he means here. I think you just rely on Harbaugh's knowledge. I think I got water all over me of the draft in terms of like knowing these players really well. And I'm not opposed to trading up if I'm a team like the Chargers in the second round, but I'm also not blowing all my draft capital for one individual player. Like we're not a player away. We're 4 or 5 really competing in the AFC. Like really we're a player away from being a little bit better, but we're 3 or 4 high-end starters away from competing for a Super Bowl. And I think sometimes when you make the move to trade up and you get rid of future picks, it can limit your ability. Harbaugh knows all these guys. He's recruited them all. He's been in their living rooms. He's coached or coached against a lot of them. Because, like you said, Ohio State, but other guys in the Big Ten, Penn State guys. Um, there's a lot of good players from the Big Ten, and they've played, Alabama last year. They've played in bowl games in previous years. Like he just knows this landscape really, really well. So I would have a hard time uh, unless it was just a can't miss thing. Okay, a couple more. Do you think Jayden Daniels will have a sophomore slump, as the media is saying? Who's saying that? I haven't seen anyone saying that, but I thought CJ. I sprinkled a little money on the Texans to be the number one seed. I thought they had added to their defense. I thought CJ was just a star, and then all of a sudden, the offensive line's terrible, and they don't. So you can never predict these things. It's the thing about sports. It's just such a on the fly, fluid reality show. You can take educated guesses. Like the only thing we know is the Chiefs are going to be good. Eagles be okay. Like, but a lot of who knows. Rams probably start slow. Longtime listener, love the show. I was listening to your podcast Thursday that aired Friday. I'm a big movie watcher, and I listened to your segment about Val Kilmer. Mark Wahlberg was the star of Boogie Nights. Val's big role was as Jim Morrison in the movie The Doors. I felt was his best performance. Yeah, I think the porn movie that I talked about with Val Kilmer was not Boogie Nights. It was called Wonderland. I mean, Boogie Nights was a major hit. Wonderland was not, and he played like Wahlberg played fictional character. To my knowledge, right? Dirk Diggler was not an actual porn star. Val Kilmer in the movie, I think it was like '02 or '01, played John Holmes, who was a legitimate porn star, I think in like the '80s or '90s. If I said Boogie Nights, I didn't mean that. I was talking about a different movie. But I enjoyed the movie Val Kilmer did. Obviously, it's not Boogie Nights, but it was good. And I recommend. I think it's called Wonderland. I think again, I looked it up a couple weeks ago. Its success. I don't think it was a successful movie. I don't even think a lot of people saw it. I don't even know how I ended up seeing it. I just remember watching it and liking it. But I listened to. I've listened to a lot of Val Kilmer content, and I do think what made him, he's such a big star. Not like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone or Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks, some of the other people during his era. But I mean, he was pretty famous. I mean, he had starring roles with Tom Cruise, with De Niro and Pacino, with Kirk Douglas. I mean, he had some huge, huge movies, but he was always like the number two. He's just like one of the truly great. And listen, not everyone can be Michael Jordan or Steph Curry. Being Scottie Pippen or Klay Thompson is a pretty good living. You become pretty legendary. And I think that, like, in terms of movies, that's kind of what he was. Like, he wasn't a star quarterback, but he was like the Hall of Fame tight end or like the Hall of Fame guard, right? Just, it doesn't get any better than having that guy on your team. But he couldn't carry your team, but you wanted him on your team. And then I was listening to Simmons did like a long pod on him. I guess he was pretty difficult to work with in his prime. And Kyle Brandt on that podcast of Good Morning Football had a good point, and I completely agree with him. It's like I kind of miss the days when just some stars, and this is why Aaron Rodgers is good for business. Not everyone can be the same. It's a problem with like the PGA Tour. Once Liv took all the bad boys, all your guys are kind of boring. Like I like some guys to be wild card human beings. It's what makes Hollywood great. Like not everyone's a straight arrow. Some of these guys are fucking batshit crazy. Egomaniacs, don't listen to anybody, got drug problems. The NBA used to be full. The NBA I grew up on in the 90s, I was like, we were talking about this last night, was full of complete nut jobs. I mean, people just doing crazy things on and off the court. And the league benefited from that. The NFL's always had that. Hollywood kind of feels boring now. Like I need a little bit more like Don't know what's going to happen here. Like, you know who's good for business? Mike Tyson, because you got no clue what is coming. And then you think, like, okay, he's going to knock Jake Paul out. And then it's like, no, he actually can't move. But it was so, Mike Tyson's so crazy, you just assumed, and I kind of did too. They're like, yeah, I can see him knocking him out. And then you're like 5 minutes into the fight, as it's trying to stream, you're like, yeah, he's got no shot. And if it is true that Val Kilmer was really difficult to work with, I miss some of just stars, whether it's athletes, whether it's musicians. I mean, think about how many musicians, some of the stories that are famous of guys just like burning down a hotel room or just doing things that, Ozzy Osbourne, like blowing a line of fire ants, biting off birds' heads. Kind of miss those days of just no clue what's happening with just superstars in whatever entertainment industry. It's like we've kind of gotten boring that way, which is understandable. There is more money than ever on the line for all these human beings. So it's like, be on your best behavior. Be on your best behavior is kind of boring entertainment. Um, so if Val Kilmer truly was RIP, a wild card to deal with, like he was clearly pretty talented. Now, what was he a star? Like Scottie Pippen, Jordan disappeared. Like Bulls weren't winning the title. Could Val Kilmer carry the movie as the star? Probably not. It's not really his thing. It's definitely not what he excelled at. Now, maybe he'd say I never got the right role, and maybe that's true. But you could argue he is definitely of his era the greatest supporting actor. And honestly, it might not even be close. It might not even be close. He's kind of like the Scottie Pippen of Hollywood in the 90s.